A very bright and colourful hello and welcome to you. In today's exciting episode, I make a colour blocked dress out of fat quarters and some leftover fabrics. It's perfect. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Perfect jacket. So I do still have oodles and oodles of the leftover fabric strips to use up. I do, and I will, but I thought I'd take a break from it to use up this blue. It's a strip. Last month I made this dress and it was going to have a third tier to the skirt that was just going to be sort of 8 strips of fabric sewn together, and that was going to be the bottom tier, but I decided I liked it the length that it was, so I have this left over, and essentially it's like a 3-tier skirt. It's the bottom tier of the 3 skirts, but obviously it's going to be a little shorter than this one. So what I need is fabric for the bodice and the top 2 skirts that will go with this gorgeous royal blue with the jungle print, sort of jungle foliage with big cats. So what I was thinking was colour blocking, so yellow top, and I just had a couple of fat quarters, so they're sort of squares of fabric. So I cropped bodice out of those two, front and back, and then I thought maybe this little bit of rose fabric for the first tier, and then some more fat quarters for the second tier of the skirt, and the blue for the bottom. There's 4 of those orange fat quarters, so there's enough. If I cut them in half, there'll be enough to go around and make the second tier. And then, yeah, I really like the blue. I was thinking maybe I'd use this leftover bit of Liberty of London print for the first tier instead of the rose fabric, but it's about half the width of the rose fabric. So yeah, the skirt will end up being very short, so it'll be a very short dress, and I'd prefer it to be at the knees rather than over the knees, so I think I'll go with the rose. I also like the way the yellow roses in the rose fabric tie into the bodice, so yeah, I think I will go with these ones and use the Liberty fabric for save it for something else. So here we go. All I have to do is cut the rose fabric in half into 2 bits. So that's the first tier, and the lots of orange fat quarters, I have to cut them in half and put them in order. So it goes leaf check, leaf check, leaf check, like there's 8 bits. And yeah. So I'll cut them up now. So here we go. I've got the 4 of them laid out, and I have to cut each of the 4 in half so that they're all the same width. The strips are all the same width. And then, make sure I keep them in this order. So I will do that now. Just sort of basically take one up, fold it in half, make a snip, and then just rip them, tear them. Because it's cotton, you can just tear it. But if you're not a bit nervous about doing that, just cut it. So I've cut all mine and they're in order. So, and then I also cut the rose fabric in half. And so these are ready to sew together. And once I've sewn them in loops, I'll have first tier, second tier, and third tier of the skirt ready to go. So I will sew them now. Okay, well, I did it eventually. So here we have my 3 tiers now. Obviously, the blue one was already done, but the red tier and the orange tier are finally one big loop as well. Here I've got them on the mannequin so you can see how big they are. This is a really wide tier, and it's only sort of 2.5 yards wide, but I think it's going to be fine. And this is actually a really squat tier. It's like a squat pumpkin. And the blue one isn't very long either. So I guess it's a good thing that the first tier is so long. Anyway, so here we have my 3 tiers, and I quite like these colours together. They're so bright. I wasn't sure about it, but I like them. So anyway, we'll take the first and second tier and we will pleat these together. So I've got to put 4 pins in the bottom of the first tier and 4 pins in the top of the second tier, and then we'll match up those pins and add more pins, and once they're 2 of them together, then obviously the orange layer will have big gaps because it's twice the amount of fabric as the red tier. But then you just sort of push it to the left so that they're smooth, and then fold it over and pin it into place. And once it's all pleated down, it is time to sew them together. So here we go. I sewed them together carefully, taking out one pin at a time. And then I reinforced it, so I sewed it twice. And here we are. I really like this. So the orange layer is a sort of dark burnt orange check on white, and the other one is this sort of pastel-y pumpkin. So we wasn't sure if they would mesh well, but I really like it, really, especially between the red and that really intense blue. I really like it. So I've pinned them on the mannequin, and I'm just pinning it on the front half because it's sort of better for the fabric if you double it over. And here we go. I know what it reminds me of. Remember the Zimmermann colour block dress with all the really odd sort of clashing colours? I think the orange and the red and the blue together. Oh, I might have to put a green layer on the bottom. That would be very cool. But then again, I have my bright green Valentino handbag. I could just wear that with it. Anyway, let's not get distracted. This is the skirt as it is at the moment. And yeah, I really like it. I wasn't sure whether I would like these colours together. I do. I think they're really cute. So yeah, I think we'll just leave this on the mannequin for the moment. I think I'll have the pumpkin at the front centre, and yeah, but the rest is kind of solid. So now we have to do the bodice, but yeah, I really like these colors together. They're very cute. Okay, so it's time for the bodice. Here we go. So it's the darker burnt orange check. It's kind of the same but in yellow. I decided that'll be the front, and then the back is just sort of a sweet little daisy in yellow. Okay, so this is a sleeveless bodice, and we're using the burrito method, which just means you don't have to hand finish all the armholes because they're sleeveless. So first we pin and sew the shoulder seams on the outer, and then the left and right on the lining. And now the next step is to join the two at the neckline. So lay flat the outer bodice, and then put the lining over the top, right sides together. And now you just have to pin them together. So make sure the shoulder seams are perfectly centered, and then do the center front, center back, and then all the rest of the pins. And once that is done, it is time to machine sew this. So once you've machine sewn it, then you just have to clip the curves. So because it's obviously a curve, so when you turn it out, you don't want it to pucker. So I've clipped the curves. Now it is time to turn it through to the correct way. And if you do your undersewing by machine, now is the time to do it before you do the armholes. I do mine by hand, so I do it at the end. But if you use the machine, you have to do it now because you won't be able to do it once the arms are done. So do that, and then it is time to work on the sleeves. So we're going to start on the right one, which is at the top of the screen. Spread out your lining and your outer bodice so you can see the full thing. Then you roll in the left side. You roll up the left side and keep rolling it until it's right in the middle of the right side outer and the right side lining, and then you pull the right side lining over the top of the whole rolled up left side so that the right side outer and the right side lining meet, and you pin those two shoulder seams together perfectly, and then pin the rest of it around the armhole. Then you machine sew it, and once that is done, then it is time to you cut the seam allowance down by half so that it'll sit nicely once it's done, and then you clip the curves again so that it doesn't pucker or pull. So once that is done, it is time to pull through the bodice, which involves pulling the whole of the back right through to the front through that tiny little shoulder strap. It is awkward, but as long as you go slowly and gently, you won't break any of the stitches you just did. It is frustrating, so if you get frustrated, just walk away, have a coffee, and come back and do it. It's Annoying, but it works if you just go a little bit slowly and gently. So the right side is done, and now it is time to do the exact same thing on the left side. So you just spread it out, the outer and the lining, then you roll in the right side, and etc, etc. And once it's done, ta-da, then this method is so cool. I used to have to hand finish everything, like hand stitch it. This is so much cooler. Now the last thing you have to do is sew the sides together. So you just pin them all together. So obviously this is the whole of the right side, the lining and the outer, and then that's the whole of the left side, the lining and the outer. Then you machine sew them, and then you have to press this seam flat open so that it will sit properly under your arm. So that's the bit where it goes from white to yellow is your underarm. So that has to be pressed flat, and then you can turn the bodice out correctly. But yeah, it's really important. If you know me, you know that I'm not a fan of ironing at all, but you really do need to press that seam. And there we go. The bodice is done. Isn't she a cutie? It's so adorable. Okay, it is time to get out the mannequin and pop this on it so we can see what they look like before we finally attach them. Okay, so this is still pinned. I can't get over how nice this one is. I wasn't sure whether the colour blocking would work when you used patterns as opposed to just colour blocking straight plain colours. Anyway, here is the bodice, and here is what it looks like from far away. It is so darn cute. I love it. The yellow and the orange are you can see them from quite far away. Probably a good thing I use the other two colours as well. Otherwise it would look like a giant candy corn, wouldn't I? Anywho, it is time to take these off the mannequin and pin them, then sew them, and we'll have ourselves a dress. So here we go. I pinned them. I've actually done micro pleats, and so I pinned the front center skirt to the front center bodice, the back center skirt to the back center bodice, and then the left side to the left side and the right side to the right side, and then sort of found halfway between each and then halfway between each again, and sort of did that all the way round until they were all pinned. And then I machine sewed it and then reinforced it, so machine sewed it again. And now it is time to do the lining. So I've put the dress on the mannequin. It's just easier on the mannequin. If you don't have one, just put it on a coat hanger and hook it over the door or something. It's just easier to see where the bodice hangs exactly if it's hanging. And then, if you put it on yourself, you'll stab yourself with pins. So definitely a mannequin, or just hang it on a rack or the back of a door or something. And so the lining is, you just sort of have to turn under the raw edge and pin it down and then hand stitch it. And the point of the point of having a lining bodice as well as an outer bodice, is that the two of them share the weight of carrying the skirt. So that's why I machine sewed that seam line on that line around the lining, so that when you turn it under and you put them near each other like this, they're all the exact same length. Even though you can't see the outer bodice, you know this lining bodice is the same length because they've got the same seam allowance. And then you just hand stitch them all together. Obviously you don't want your stitches showing on the outside, so you just push up the skirt seams, and there's also the bodice seam there. You push them up so they're the inside between the outer bodice and the lining bodice, and then you just hand stitch that all the way around. And here we go. The dress is done. This is a cutie. I really like this dress. It's so nice and bright and cheerful. I love it. Even if you're just wearing black long sleeve t-shirt and black yoga pants and you have to, rush out to do some chores or something, you just put a dress like this over the top and you just look instantly bright and energetic, even though you may not feel it. So yeah, it's really cute. And I decided to add the green just because to pick up that color from that Zimmerman color block dress. And oh my gosh, it looks so good. This green, this is a Sally Kelly Paradiso print, this green one. I love it. It's one of my favorite prints ever. And it looks so good with this. It's adorable. I love this combination. I really didn't know whether those orange, that pumpkin one, would go with the other sort of check in the burnt orange and white. But I love this. They're just the perfect mismatch. I think they go really, really well together. And that is it for this video. I'm so contented with this dress. I wasn't sure about it, but I really like it. And so my mind goes back to the leftovers. I still have all these to go. I'm kind of very taken with the idea of trying to finish them before the end of the year, or at least have definite ideas for what each dress will be. I'm not sure I could physically get them all made by then, but if I have a very clear idea of, because each time I make a dress, I get a better idea of how much fabric can be used up in each dress, because there's just, it's amazing how much fabric there is cut into little bits. It doesn't look like much, because when you just fold a few bit cuts of 2 yards or 3 yards fabric and you stack them up, it takes up X amount of space. But then when it's in little bits, I don't know, I just feel like there's so much there, and I'm chipping away at it pretty steadily. And I feel like I'm not getting anywhere. Well, that's a little melodramatic, but you get what I mean. Anyway, I love this. I love the color blocking. I think it looks really great. So thank you for watching. I hope you've been inspired to grab a few random bits out of your stash and try and make them work together. I mean, what's the worst that can happen? They look bad, so you have to unpick it and use them in something else. I think this turned out awesome, and I definitely recommend you do the same. Well, just experiment a little outside what you normally do. Anyway, thank you again for watching, and happy sewing.